Hi everyone, this is our channel, Around My Story. Please like, share and subscribe.
I promise to love you unconditionally each and every day that we're together. I will never get tired of waking up next to you. I will forever be loyal, and I will never stop thanking the universe for meeting someone like you. You complete me. My name is May, and that's me practicing my vows in front of the mirror. I was so excited for my wedding. I got prepared 2 hours early because I wanted to have time for other things that might go wrong last minute. And yes, that's classic me. I have my own clipboard, and I'm probably driving my wedding planner crazy. Anyway, this is my big day, so I took a deep breath and saw my best friend John as he entered the room. I smiled at him. You look wonderful, he said. I met John in math school, and we instantly clicked. He's more than any girl could ask for. He's my best friend because he's always been there for me. One time my mom asked me why we're not together, and to be honest, sometimes I think about that too. John is very good looking. Maybe we just don't see each other like that. Besides, I already met the love of my life. We're getting married today. John accompanied me for an hour while we waited for the signal from the wedding planner. But instead, I saw John's mom enter the room. She told me that Mark, my fiance, was not answering his phone, and the best man checked and he's not in the hotel room either. In my head, that only meant one thing. He bailed on me. I fainted. They panicked and brought me to the hospital where John and I worked as interns. 2 months later, I quit the internship program at the hospital. They were gonna fire me anyway. I'm out of my game because of what I'm going through. I'm always alone in my apartment. I pushed people away, including my mom. Don't get me wrong, I just got sick of kind words trying to comfort me. It just doesn't make things better. That time, nothing comforted me except sad music, sappy movies, and chocolate ice cream. Sometimes I look at my old photos with Mark. I also have not deleted our photos on Facebook. I just couldn't get myself to do it yet. My thoughts are disturbed by John's text message. Open the door. I opened the door and asked him, why didn't you just use your keys? My hands are full, he said. I saw him carrying 2 bags of goods, meaning lots of ice cream and sweets. He knows my favorites. I don't know what I was gonna do without him, really. That night, we watched a movie about best friends who fell in love with each other. He suddenly grabbed my hand and kissed it. I slapped him. I was so surprised. I slapped him so hard he had a red mark on his cheek. I rushed to the fridge and got him some ice. I'm so sorry, I said. No, I'm the one who should apologize, really, he said back. What he said startled me. I love you, May. Always have, always will. I felt my head spinning. Nope, I'm not dreaming. I'm having a sugar rush, maybe. But I was just really surprised. I did not expect that. Then he said I don't really need to say anything back to him. He said that he would be happy if I would just let him love me. He just wants to be by my side and take care of me. Listen, John, I'm in a lot of pain. I'm a mess right now, I told him. I know, and I don't care. I'm here for you. I can't even hate you for not realizing I have had feelings for you since day one, he said. Why didn't you say something? Why wait all these years? I asked him. I tried, he said. Remember when we went to Paris 3 years ago? I was about to tell you how I felt. I remember that. But also, I remember that I met Mark on our flight going there. He tagged along with us, so he never really had the chance. I remember that day. It must have been so horrible for John, because I instantly fell for Mark. I remember how he saved up for that trip so he could bring me to Paris. I didn't know. I'm such a terrible human being. We talked that night, and I apologized. Not just for slapping him, but for the pain I must have caused as well. Long story short, I gave him a chance, and a year later, we eloped. With John, everything was falling into place. Everything was right, and I felt incredible. He made me forget what Mark did to me. Years later, I don't regret marrying John. Not ever. I know there's no point to wait. We will have a nice life together because he loves me. And when I started giving him a chance, I felt hard for him as well. We're finally happy. Our marriage was amazing. We traveled together for a whole year. Enjoyed the things we did not do when we were just friends. We're happy now. Yeah, I already said that. John is also successful now. He's already a resident. And right now, I'm starting over as an intern in a different hospital. Cool, right? So our life is basically stable. Like nothing could ever go wrong. Like all we need to do is wake up each day and be happy. But life has its own way to balance things out. 6 months after we secretly got married, I got pregnant. We were both so ecstatic. We both wanted to have kids, but I had a hard time with work because I learned that my pregnancy is fragile. Still, I pushed myself hard to finish my internship. I am so behind, and I don't want to stop for another year. John was so upset about that. He said that he could just work for both of us. But that's not the point. I also wanted to have a career. Not at the expense of our own child, he yelled at me. It was the first time we felt like that, and it felt so bad. We eventually made up, and he promised that he would try to understand me more. But during the last month of my pregnancy, the hospital got too toxic because there was an ongoing storm and people were coming in with a lot of injuries and all. I pushed myself to my limit because people needed my help, but that day, I lost my baby. We got a power outage at the hospital, so I took the stairs but I felt dizzy and I fell down. I had a miscarriage. It was an accident, but I felt somehow responsible. I wanted the world to blame me. Maybe that's why I felt a little better that John actually did. John loves me, so of course he didn't say it to my face, but something changed. I was so devastated, and John was often not at home. He's either out with his friends or working late at the hospital. He's not saying it, but I know he hates me. We tried to make it work, but John accepted an offer abroad that would last the whole year. He did not even consult me. I understand that it's for his career, but that's not how a marriage is supposed to work. And so, he left me. I told him that I'm not sure I would still be here when he gets back. I lived my life without him. I still talk to him, but we were falling apart. Our baby's death broke me. I know it broke him as well. It broke us. It broke everything. A year later, he came back. We tried again. I accepted him because he said we should at least make it work. We were also best friends. We should at least consider that. We attended marriage counseling. We went to a couples retreat. We made time to do the things we love. We traveled again, but we both felt there was a huge gap. One day, I learned that he accepted another job offer abroad and did not even tell me about it. We had a huge fight. We said things to each other that permanently damaged our relationship and even our friendship. And so, he left me the very next day. 6 months later, we filed for divorce, but we tried to make sure that it was what we wanted. We spent the whole night together for the very last time. A couple months later, after our divorce, I took a pregnancy test, and it came out positive. I couldn't believe it. I was half happy, half confused. I told John before labor. It took him a while to get his head wrapped around it. I hate how John and I have become. I did not just lose my husband, I lost my very best friend. 2 years later, I found myself in court. We were having this messy custody battle over our little Mike, our son. Wondering why? Because I got a great job offer in a different country, and I decided to take it. The court took his side, and I had to kiss my son goodbye. I felt my whole body shaking. I left the country, and I video called Mike every day for 2 years. Of course, I also talked to John, but we never really went back to being best friends. One day, I was trying to reach John, only to find his mom answering the phone. She told me that John was in an accident, and he did not make it. My heart fell to the ground, and the world stood still. I immediately took a plane back home. Guess who was in John's funeral? Mark, my runaway fiancé. But I couldn't care less. Mark actually talked to me. He tried to apologize, and I was so tired. I only nodded and walked away. He did not know what to tell me. Surprisingly, I wasn't mad at him. I was not mad at anything but myself. John's mom came up to me and told me that John has left me $20 million. Why do you think he left me that kind of money? Where did that money come from? I would love to know your thoughts. Comment down below and don't forget to hit like and subscribe.
Beauty has myriad aspects. Some girls have a beautiful exterior, but with an ugly personality on the inside. Some are ugly on the outside, but have a beautiful personality. Some are average on the outside, but inside are very educated and elegant in behavior. This is where the idea of the Miss World contest originally came from. The girl who has the most aspects of beauty overall should be able the title. But what if a girl is beautiful in every way except for the external beauty that is valued above all other aspects? Does she really stand a chance at all? My name is Naomi, and I am 16 years old. I live with my mom and 2 sisters. I am the middle daughter. My dad died a long time ago in a horrible train accident, leaving Mom to raise us alone. So she taught us to be independent, to trust in ourselves, and to determine our own paths in life. We excelled at school and had plenty of friends. But life didn't give us everything. There is always a blemish on anyone's life. For me, it was beauty. I was boringly plain-looking. No one wanted to date me. But I was okay with that because I knew that most boys were idiots, concerned only about a pretty face, even if that pretty face belonged to an empty-headed dimwit. Our school held an annual beauty contest based solely on external beauty, so I figured that it was time to change the rules of the game. I went to the teacher responsible for organizing this contest and suggested that this year's contest be a multifaceted beauty contest. I explained about considering internal aspects of beauty, such as maturity, responsibility, social interactions, academic performance, environmental awareness, character, personality, talent, hobbies, aspirations, etc. The teacher smiled and told me that she didn't have the control in this matter, but said she would speak with the principal. She asked for 2 days to try to persuade him. The 2 days crawled by at a snail's pace, but I was rewarded by my new rules adopted for this year's beauty contest. It would focus on both the inner and outer aspects of beauty. The student body was divided on the issue. My group cheered the new rules, but Emily's group hated it. Emily had won the school's beauty contest for the previous 2 years. She was as beautiful as a Walt Disney princess. Long blonde hair, lovely soothing voice, green eyes, elegant posture, but snobbish, vapid, shallow, narrow-minded. She testily asked the air, "Whose idea were these stupid new rules?" "Mine," I answered simply. She glared at me and told me that the old rules had been the standing rules for eons and couldn't be changed. But I corrected her by telling her that everything changes. She dismissed me with a wave of her hand by telling me that it didn't matter. that she was a shoo-in to win anyway, regardless of any stupid rule changes. I read the flyer about the contest and the new rules. One facet to be evaluated was how well a student contributed to the school's goals of fostering kindness and learning. Another facet was one's talent and hobbies like poetry, drawing, acting, or singing. Another was general knowledge of the world. And yet another was about etiquette, politeness, and manners. I put my plan into motion to win this contest from vain, brainless Emily. Still, she seemed so confident that I felt like I had no real chance of actually beating her. The contest, which would span several days, began. The first phase of the competition was on the social aspects of beauty. Emily chose to woo the students by distributing roses and chocolates to them. In addition, she flirted with the more popular boys to get them and their friends to like her. Other contestants distributed different things to students. I needed to do something distinctive and unexpected, something genuinely useful. So I summarized the semester's school subjects for the students so they could study more easily and efficiently for their final exams. I also asked Mom to prepare healthy lunches for them. My ideas were well received. The next phase was general knowledge. The judges paired everyone with a rival. The winners of those pairs would then be paired repeatedly until only one winner emerged by elimination. I was paired with Emily. Favoring her external beauty, the judges asked her easy questions. Me? I got the challenging questions. But despite this biased treatment, I answered all the questions correctly. The next part was about artistic talent. Emily was an excellent actress. Imagine that. She portrayed a stage scene and won well-deserved praise for her performance. My talent was drawing. I drew an intricate drawing and recited a poem. My heart was pounding during my poem recital, but I managed to receive vigorous applause. Emily was staring daggers at me. If looks could kill, my death would have eliminated me from the contest at that very moment. The next phase of the contest focused on costumes. I told Mom that I didn't see how I could possibly be Emily, but she continued to encourage me and believe in me. Her words inspired me. When I woke up that day, I was surprised by a new dress in my closet. It was so stylish and fit my form perfectly. It made me look like Cinderella. I wore it and went to the school. All the girls were beautifully dressed, as was I, I'm happy to say. I did well in this phase. The final phase would be judged on external beauty. The judging began, and all the contestants were so beautifully made up, with expensive hairdos and elegant sparkly dresses, that my spirit plummeted as my chances of winning seemed almost nil. Then suddenly, I had a crazy idea. I whispered in Mom's ear and went into the restroom. When they called my name, I walked up onto the stage in clean, neat, everyday school clothes, with no makeup and no fancy hairdo. Just plain old me. I asked the judges for permission to speak, and they allowed it. Directing my speech to the students present, I explained that my external appearance was not what true beauty was about. Yes, I could dress up and smile for one day to impress the judges. But what about the other days of the year? People's outward appearance should be respectful, decent, and proper all the time. When I finished my speech, it was met with enthusiastic applause, even by the judges. Now it was time to announce the overall winner of the contest. As is typical, they announced the third-place winner, then the second-place winner. I hadn't heard my name yet and was sure that Emily's name was about to be announced for first place. When I heard my name announced for first place, I screamed with joy. I couldn't believe it. Everyone was cheering for me, and Mom was looking so proud. After the contest was over, a shy but well-mannered and well-behaved boy came over and asked me for a date. I turned toward Emily and smiled sweetly. She didn't return my smile. Well, long story short, a plain Jane, me, won the overall contest and proved that even an ugly duckling can be loved for its inner beauty.
He was a dream, the future, or so I thought. But my love was cursed right from the start. Sounds a bit confusing, right? Let me explain. But first, I should probably introduce myself. I'm Carolyn. I was a dreamer. I dreamed of a good, warm, stable, successful life. I wanted a good job. And I wanted to travel around the world a bit with Helen. She was my best friend. We virtually shared the same dreams, and hobbies, and interests, and lifestyles. We've been friends since we were kids. People often thought that we were sisters. I did too, in fact. She even got jealous if anyone tried to get close to me. Every day, Helen and I worked a little more towards our dreams. Once, when Helen and I were traveling with some of our friends, we had a problem with the hostess on the plane. A gentleman intervened and cleverly solved our problems. His name was Danny. I liked him. A lot. I thought about him often. But whenever I talked to Helen about him, she told me that he was not as amazing as I seemed to think he was. Coincidentally, I met him again at a party of a mutual friend. We talked together till daylight. I told Helen about our encounter, and she expressed her wishes that my love story would have a happy ending. I similarly told her that I hoped she would find the love of her life someday too. Everything would be okay, we figured. Then, one day, I received a letter in our mailbox. It was in weird handwriting, as if the writer had written it with a trembling hand. I opened it curiously. It said that my love for Danny would become a curse if I didn't give him up and get him out of my life. What nonsense, I thought. Whose idea of a silly joke was this? I immediately called Danny and Helen to tell them about the letter. Danny laughed, but Helen was worried and suggested that I should be careful from now on. That same day, Danny had a horrible car accident, but fortunately he wasn't hurt. A detective investigating the case determined that his car brakes had been tampered with. In another incident, a car almost hit me, but it swerved away at the last minute. When I mentioned this incident to Danny, he tried to calm me down and told me to just forget about it. He gave me a beautiful bracelet as a present and proposed. We got engaged, and I couldn't have been happier. I wanted to show the bracelet to Helen, but somehow I seemed to have lost it. I couldn't find it anywhere. Anyway, when I told Helen about his proposal, she was thrilled for me. I spent days shopping for just the right wedding dress. I was so busy with preparations that I forgot all about the ominous letter. I went to the wedding hall early to make sure that everything was ready and prepared. Helen was helping me, and Danny kept calling me to make sure I was all right. Suddenly, the lights went out. I called out to Helen, worried that she might have tripped and fallen when the lights were out. When the lights came back on, Helen had fainted, and my dress had disappeared. I screamed to the ceiling, "What do you want from me? Leave me alone!" Suddenly, Danny appeared out of nowhere and asked me what had happened. I told him then and there that we must break off our engagement, otherwise the curse the letter mentioned might injure someone or cause someone to die. Then Helen came to and tried to calm me down. She told me to go to the car and that she would get our stuff and follow me. I loved Danny and wanted to marry him, but now I was seriously worried that this curse threat might actually be real. Helen came back carrying a bag and a large suitcase and told Danny not to worry, that she would drive me home and then call him to tell him that we had arrived safely. I was still crying, and Helen was trying to calm me down. When we arrived home, I noticed something strange. Helen was carrying a bag that was partially open, and I glimpsed a piece of clothing stuffed into it. It looked exactly like my dress. I opened the bag and found that it was my dress. I confronted Helen and demanded to know how my missing dress ended up in her bag. I clearly caught her red-handed, and she was unable to answer coherently. I realized at that moment that the source of the so-called curse was Helen. "Helen," I said, "how dare you do this to me? I thought we were like sisters to each other." She replied icily, with a glare that I saw for the first time. She said that she fell in love with Danny just as I did, but he chose me instead of her, and that she hated me for it. She said she won him over and got him to love her instead. Then they both tried to scare me into calling off the wedding so that she and Danny could be together. There are no words to describe how I felt at the time. I replied in a similar tone. I told her that I don't ever want to see her again, or Danny, Neither of them mattered anymore. I never did see Helen or Danny after that day. I'm on a Caribbean island now, sipping on a cocktail. I read in the paper that Danny and Helen had announced their engagement. I'm thinking about what wedding present I should give them as a surprise.